Hello and welcome back to the Golf Score Studio channel. In this video we are going to cover a pretty large update to the studio. We've got new workflows and new features, so let's just go ahead and dive right in. First thing you'll notice is that when you go to the studio, you now are taken to the projects page. This is where your projects are going to live. One of the main reasons we added this was because it's nice to be able to start fresh. Before this update, every time you'd come back, it was always exactly where you left it off, which is nice if you're continuing from that point, but if you're starting on a new project, it's just easier to start fresh. This is what it looks like when you have not yet created your first project, and then once you've got some projects added, they start to stack up here. So let's go ahead and start another project, and just like before, it'll start you off at the selection page. And if you have used Golf Score Studio in the past, then this is unchanged. The only real difference is the project name at the top and the save and exit button. So I'm going to make my selection and head over to design. This is where the major update is, all the new workflows and the new features. It is a lot to cover, so I'll give like a brief overview, and then I think the best way to explain the new features is to create example scenarios or desired outcomes, and then I'll show the workflow to achieve that. So we're going to try that in this video. Alright, to start off this overview, we're going to look at the color panel. So we've got the tabs at the top, which is Manual and Pro. Manual looks a lot like it does now, but we've got some add to theme or save styles to a player. We will talk about that later. We've also got palette themes where you can apply colors to your desired selection, and then custom themes too. Again, we'll cover that in depth later. Moving on to the input panel over here, same structure. We've got the manual and the pro. So the manual is just like it says. It's for the manual entry, and it's got all the inputs. But for the pro, we wanted to clean that up for the pro users so that, because they're not having to type in all that stuff, they just have to type it in the scorecard. So we wanted to clean it up a little bit and optimize this workflow. So we've got the project baseline up at the top, and that's just like what it says it is. It's the baseline. So if you're going to use your logo, you can choose your file, and then whatever image you pick here will just go across the entire batch. Like I said, it's the baseline. And then below, you've got the different categories. These will override your project baseline. So if you want your logo in the project baseline, but you want maybe a secondary logo or something else in your stroke cards, well, then you can upload that and it'll override that. The rest will still have that baseline until you get more specific with your inputs. And this is kind of like a cascade of specificity. So project baseline is the baseline. The categories are more specific, and if you want to get as specific as possible, then you would go to the manual, and then at that point you're working directly on that template. You're not working on a category or on the batch as like a whole. So we're kind of experimenting with this layout. We hope that it makes sense for our pro users and it actually speeds up their workflow a little bit. We are totally open to the rejection of this, if that's okay. We understand it can be a little bit confusing, and so if you have a better idea or something, feel free to leave a comment. We're always open to y'all's input. So we're going to test this out first, see if it works, see what you guys think. If you hate it, we'll find something new. So to conclude this overview, we've got to cover the new and shiny Pro Features panel. So you'll see we've got a scorecard tab where your main scorecard lives, but we've also got player tabs now where they've got their player color and their own little personal information here. Back to the main scorecard, you can see we've got the course name, and then we've got the ability to add distances. So if you got players playing off of different tees, again, I'm getting a little too specific and getting carried away. I'll cover this later. Moving back to the player scorecard, we can hit this little expand button right here, and then we've got a totally new way of visualizing your round, and this also works with some data input. As you can see, it's linked to the wizard. That's the overview. Oh, can't forget export options. We've got the little wizard icon now. We've got penalty strokes, and we've got some ways to tweak your course name. So now we can move on to the examples, and what I'll do is I'll pop like the example on the screen or the scenario, and then I'll show you the workflow to achieve that. Actually, before I conclude this overview, let me touch on the project name and these buttons right here. Pretty self-explanatory. The project name is just how it's going to reflect in your project page, And then if there's any unsaved changes, then you can save or exit without saving. Um, it'll catch you if you are exiting and you want to save. It'll let you know like, hey, unsaved, and then so you can save and exit, and then you name your project, and that's how that works. Now we can get into the examples. Anytime you're wanting to change the colors quickly for one template or multiple templates, you can go to the palette theme over in the color panel on the Pro tab and select from this drop down menu. So for this example, we are going red, and then you can scroll through, select all, select what you want, and hit apply. And then that will give you these red colors or the color of the theme that you select. And then from here you can export as is, or you can tweak them a little bit if you want to. It looks a little bit different on all browsers, but they should have the ability to come in here and, you know, really fine tune what you want. You can even use the color picker, and that helps really hone in on the colors that you're trying to use. And so yeah, that's how the palette themes work, and let's move on to the next point. If you have colors that you'll be using a lot for most of your videos, then it would make sense to create a custom theme. To do that, we just hit the create, and you'll see that we have 3 slots for 3 separate themes. You just click one of the slots, give it a name, and now you have a custom theme. But you might be asking, well, how do I apply the colors to this theme? So let's close, and then we go to the manual tab over here, and this is where you design the colors, and then you would hit add to theme. So let me do that real quick. Okay, here we go. These are the colors that I have styled, and now if I hit add to theme, I can click to add, and now it's added. So if I go back and let's say I was to just make everything the default colors again, I can now go to custom themes. It'll be at the top, and you'll see the themes that you've got. I click my theme. Now select all. Well, you'll see I've only applied to one so far. So this template is not supported, neither is standard, and it'll let you know that you don't have that because you're not able to apply it. But I do have it for standard. I hit apply, and then boom, it quickly uses my colors. So if you've got channel colors or a brand that you've got established, or maybe there's like a certain type of themed video where you're playing from the red tees or something and you want to make your colors red, well then you've got 3 slots for your custom themes, and then you can click this little pencil right here to edit. So if I wanted to get rid of these saved colors and override them with another one, I could just make a new one, or I could get rid of it, and then to delete the entire theme altogether is this red trash can right there. And that is how you do custom themes. To give a player their own specific styles, we go to the Pro Features panel and we navigate to that player's page, and this is where you see the player saved styles. And the reason I'm saying the word styles and not colors is because player color is its own thing, and we will address that later. But for this, we are saving the styles for this player. So just like it tells you, you go to the manual tab. Now I've already got these colors picked out, and then you can save styles to a player. You pick the player. You're able to save to multiple players. So if you're playing on like a team or something, and you're blue team versus red team, well then you can apply these to the players that are all on the same team. So I'll click apply, and then you'll see down here it gets added. This is the Scorecard disc. It's got those little colors right there for you, and you can remove or load. And then I'll show you what it's like to add another one. Just save those colors to the player, and now there you've got the whole previews stacked is the name of this template, and the remove and load. And by load, it just means if you click that, it brings it front and center, and you're able to do this with multiple players. And I'll show you how this exports, but one distinction I want to make is that these saved styles that we just added are for this player. The rest of these players don't have any saved styles, so they will be what what you see here, which is like the base. So if I was to export right now, it would all look the same for every player. So to help highlight this example, I'll just make this the default. And so now these players should have the default, the base of what they see in the batch, and this player will have their saved styles. So let me export, and now I am in the project folder. Let's go to stroke cards, disk, hole 1, and we'll see this player is default. Same with this player, and this is because they didn't have the assignments. And then if we come to this player, boom, we see how they've got their colors, which applies to the font and the opacity as well. And there you go. That is how you give players their own styles. To give a player their own image, it's very similar to the player styles. It is on their player page, and you just click the player image upload field and pick your image. And it's as simple as that. Any player-specific templates, the image for this player will be what you see in the player image. Pretty straightforward. I'm a big fan of this next one because when I play, I go to the same courses pretty often. So when I start a new project, I don't want to have to enter in all the pars and distances every single time. So now in the top left corner on the main scorecard page, you'll see the save course icon and the load course icon. So for your course name and all of the pars and distances, you're able to save, pick a slot, and then now this is saved. So I can load, and because I was already there, it doesn't really see it. So let me clear, and now I can load, and oh boy. Well, I just cleared all the, for the sake of this example, I just cleared out all the data that I just had in here. But I was trying to show you that the scorecard is now loaded. Still hanging out in the Pro Features panel, on the main scorecard, we have the ability to add distance rows. And that is how you remove them with the little X over here. And you've got the label that you can type whatever you'd like, and then the distance unit for that distance row. And so you'll see in this example, we're playing some disc golf, and so we've got some tee pads, and we have to put those into feet. And then we've got some pretend tee pads for this example, and we've got those in yards. And once we have our distances filled out, we go ahead and make sure to save because we don't want to lose that. And the next step is to go to the players and select what distance they played from. So this player played from the tee pad, and that one's in feet. Let's say that this one played from the pretend tees, and this one played from the pretend tees, and so on. So that's how that works. Now let me show you how that exports. Okay, here we are in the export file. So we can start by looking at the whole previews, and you'll see that we've got 3 different subfolders. One is for the pink, because as you remember, we had saved styles for that player, and they were on the pretend tee pads, which is in yards, and you can see that reflected here. And then we had teal, but that player didn't have any saved styles, so they actually had the base styles, but they were on yards. And so you see the base styles with their yards. Now the reason that they're all alone is because they were the only one that was both base and yards. The rest of the players were assigned to the feet, and so you can see them all grouped here with their base styles and their feet tee pad. So basically the way this works is it just groups based off of shared styles and shared distances. And real quick, we've got pink with their saved styles and their yards, but the yellow player was on base styles. They didn't have any saved styles, and they were assigned the tee pad that was in feet. So just another example here. And that is how you use different distances. The course name, which you can see right here, is something that we've added to stroke cards and scoreboards. For scoreboards over here in the input panel, the way you turn that on is in the header title. you just set that to the pro scorecard, and that will replace what you see is the word leaderboard with whatever you have in your course name right here. Right now, those are the only two categories that have the course name, but if you'd like to see that on the whole previews or the scorecards, leave a comment and let us know. For stroke cards, you just come over here and turn it on, and then it's automatically pulling from the pro scorecard. Now, once you have it on, you'll want to come down to the export options and click this little icon right here. The idea behind this whole configuration right here is to have some visual variety in your templates, where sometimes it shows and sometimes it doesn't, because at some point the course name does get a little redundant. This is how you can control where and how often that is shown. It's a pretty short list right now because I only have one stroke card in the batch, and the scoreboard does its own thing. This configuration is for the stroke cards, so that's the only option that I have right here. So I'll click that, and then in this parameter section, this will let you pick the holes you want the course name to appear on. And me personally, I think that it makes sense on the 9th, the 10th, and the 1st and the 18th. So beginning, and then rounding the corner, and then the final hole, and we can just toggle that to where it's only showing on the first stroke, and that is finished. That's all set up. Now we can move over to the export. Okay, here we are in the export file. I've got the scoreboard pulled up, and you can see that the title is in fact the course name. Now we can move over to the stroke cards. So we set it for hole 1, hole 9, 10, and 18. Well, we only played 9 holes. That's how many holes of data I had entered, so it's only going to be on hole 1 and hole 9. We can look at the first hole and that first stroke and see that it is there. But if we look at the second stroke, we can see that it is not showing. And then if we go to the second hole, first stroke, we can see that it's not showing there. But if we go down to the 9th hole on the first stroke, we can see that it is. There you have it. That is how the course name works. The workflow for setting these parameters is subject to change, but for now, this is what we've got. So that's how you do it. When you hit out of bounds, the next stroke is a penalty stroke, and so you don't really need to render any overlays for that stroke. So as an export option, we've added the ability to skip penalty strokes. This way your files, when they export, are clean and actually sequential to a shot-by-shot basis, which just makes it easier to drag and drop into your timeline when you're video editing. That one penalty stroke might throw you off, and next thing you know, you're using the wrong graphic for the wrong shot, and you're confused at where everything went wrong. This is an option to try and prevent that from happening, so you can toggle that on. And now it'll skip penalty strokes, but you have to assign those penalty strokes. So that can happen in the wizard, which when you pull up, the first stroke of every hole can't be a penalty. And if it can, leave a comment, because I'm not sure of any scenario in which the first stroke can be a penalty stroke. And that goes for the last stroke too. But on the strokes in between the first and the last, you can get your penalty strokes. So you would just go to the chip and toggle that on, and that is one way to do it. Another way to add penalty strokes is to go to the player scorecard and expand it with that tab down here, and what you will see is the stroke grid. Essentially, each dot is a stroke, and you can see we've already got the penalty stroke from what we assigned earlier. It's that X. And if you wanted to assign another penalty stroke, you could just go to the hole. So let's go to hole 13, just because it kind of makes sense here with a double bogey, and say that the second stroke was a penalty stroke, which means this player hit it into the water off of the tee or something. So now we can check in the export for hole 1, stroke 2 should not be there. There should only be 3 strokes for this player on hole 1. So let's export and see. And as you can see, there's a stroke 1, there's no 2, but there is a 3, and there's a 4. And so that is how you skip penalty strokes when you are exporting. Picking back up in the player scorecard, I want to cover what it is you're seeing here, what these squares mean, what the line means, all of this. One way to do that is to just create a new player, and what you'll see is green on the under par strokes and par strokes, and red on the over par stroke. Then you've got the border that rides the line between par and under and over par. Once you have input the scores, it will add the dots, which represent a stroke, to that cell, and it does a couple things. If it is under par, then for birdies you'll get this kind of muted green, and then eagles you'll get the gradient to where the better the score is for the hole, the more extreme the gradient, and it goes the opposite way too with the red for bogey versus a double bogey. And then, as you might have noticed, is as I hover over one of these strokes, it will show you what is going on with that stroke. So I've gone ahead and went to the wizard and added some of these club choices, shot distances, and penalty strokes, and four tags too, so that you can see if you hover over, it creates the little card that tells you what's going on. And this is a good way to overview all of your inputs. And actually, if you click on it, it will open up the wizard, but instead of the wizard where it's all the players, it's just for this individual player. And then so you're actually able to just work your way through for this individual player instead of dealing with all of the players. If you want to look at all of the players, you would open the wizard through the little wizard hat icon, which is here, and also there is one here in the stroke cards, which is where you turn on the four tag, the shot distance, and the club choice. I know they used to live here, but they have since moved, and it's probably a little late to be mentioning that, but yes, this is where they live now, and this wizard hat icon is what opens the wizard, but this is the one that has all of the players. And one other thing is this used to be an X, now it's a trash can to make it a little bit more clear, because I might have fallen for the trap a few times and exited without saving. I really like being able to visualize my round in this way. Not only do I just think it's cool, but I think it really helps being able to see each stroke spread out on a table like this. Let me know what you think about the player expanded scorecard and this stroke card grid that you're looking at here. And last but not least, let's talk about what this is right here. This is the player color. And I want to make it clear that this player color is different than the saved styles. A good way to think of this is the color that represents this player on the overlays that have multiple players. So right now, the only multiplayer overlay we have is our scoreboard. But in the future, we will add stuff like multiplayer scorecards. It's an obvious direction, and if you have any ideas, leave a comment and we can try and make it happen. So let's get into this. Here we've got the scoreboard. We've got the header title that we talked about earlier, but here's the player color rows. So right now, the current behavior is it just alternates between primary and secondary for this template. That is the default color pattern. But if we do player colors, then when we export, by the way, a little notifier shows right here, some colors driven by player assignment, reflected in export only. So that is just trying to tell you that it'll change the primary colors, but this first square isn't going to be blue. It's going to be whoever's in the lead. It's going to be the color for whoever is in the lead. So I'm just going to export, and then it'll make it abundantly clear. Actually, before I export, I do want to mention that this section right here, the header, is what you would consider the base colors. So actually, I'm going to change these colors to that, and then I'll export and see what we get. Here's two side by side that show that the color follows the player. And this is just another one of the really cool features that is getting added in this update, which sets the groundwork for future expansion, like with the multiplayer scorecards and so on. Alright, well that'll do it for today's video. I hope the information was helpful, and we're looking forward to all of our users taking advantage of these really cool features. I hope you enjoyed, and have a good one.